He wasn't born into the world of engines, he was born into art. But what this young man created would go on to become one of the most feared, admired, and expensive car brands in history. This is the story of how Ettore Bugatti turned obsession into legend. Long before Bugatti became a name spoken in whispers among billionaires, collectors, and speed fanatics, it began in a far humbler setting. Not in a grand factory, not in a palace of engineering, but in the imagination of a young man who saw beauty where others saw bolts and steel. This is not just the story of a car company. It is the story of obsession, an obsession with elegance, precision, and perfection so intense that it survived war, grief, collapse, and even death itself. It is the story of Ettore Bugatti, the artist's son who turned machinery into sculpture and laid the foundation for what many now call the greatest hypercar name in the world. Ettore Arco Isidoro Bugatti was born on September 15, 1881, in Milan, Italy, a city overflowing with design, culture, and craftsmanship. His father, Carlo Bugatti, was no ordinary man. He was a celebrated designer whose furniture, silverwork, and decorative art were admired across Europe for their bold forms and unusual beauty. In the Bugatti household, art was not decoration, it was a way of thinking. Form mattered. Detail mattered. Grace mattered. Young Ettore grew up breathing that philosophy. While many boys looked at machines as noisy tools, he looked at them as living forms. He saw curves where others saw frames, rhythm where others saw pistons, and beauty where others saw utility. One of the first signs of this vision came when he was still a teenager. Around the age of 16, he received a tricycle. But he did not simply ride it. He studied it. Then he dismantled it, adjusted its gearing, improved its balance, and rebuilt it into something faster and more refined. Carlo Bugatti noticed immediately. What he saw was not childish tinkering but disciplined imagination. His son was not just curious, he was already trying to perfect the object in front of him. That instinct would define the rest of his life. Encouraged by his family, Ettore entered an apprenticeship at Prinetti and Stucci in Milan, a company better known for bicycles and sewing machines than for automobiles. Yet it was there that he first gained serious hands-on access to engines and mechanical design. By the age of 17, he had developed his first working vehicle, a motorized tricycle powered by twin de Dion engines. Primitive by modern standards, it was nevertheless an extraordinary achievement for someone so young. This machine, later known as the Type 1, was more than a youthful experiment. It was the beginning of a lifelong pattern. Ettore Bugatti would always seek to reduce weight, sharpen performance, and turn engineering into art. At Prinetti and Stucci, he studied frames and gears with the eye of a sculptor. He treated each part not as a component to be assembled, but as a line in a larger composition. That attitude made him different from traditional engineers. He was not purely technical, and he was not purely artistic. He was both. And that unusual combination would eventually give every Bugatti its soul. By the time he was 20, his talent was already attracting attention. At the 1901 Milan Trade Fair, his newly developed Type 2 astonished critics and engineers alike. With support from early backers, Ettore had built a car that felt unlike anything else on the floor. It was precise, elegant, and restrained, less a noisy contraption than a coherent design statement. The French Automobile Club awarded it a prize, and suddenly the young Milanese designer was no longer a curiosity. He was a rising force. That recognition led to a job with Baron Adrian de Dietrich, who hired Ettore as technical director of a car plant in Alsace. It was a remarkable responsibility for such a young man. At Dietrich, Ettore designed a series of vehicles now remembered as Types 3 through 7. These cars sold reasonably well and bore the Dietrich Bugatti name, but the partnership was never a perfect fit. Dietrich favored larger, sturdier machines suited to wealthy customers and practical needs. Ettore wanted something else entirely. He believed lightness was a form of intelligence. He believed speed did not require bulk. He believed true engineering was not about excess but about efficiency, elegance, and control. Eventually, he could no longer contain that vision inside someone else's company. In 1906, he parted ways with Dietrich. After a short period working with Deutz, a German engine manufacturer, Ettore withdrew into something far riskier and far more personal. In the basement of his home in Cologne, under lamplight and with limited tools, he began building a car that would express his philosophy with total clarity. That car became the Bugatti Type 10. Completed in 1909, the Type 10 was compact, graceful, and shockingly light. It weighed only around 365 kilograms and used a 1.2-liter four-cylinder engine. On paper, it may not have looked like a revolution. But in motion, it stunned people. The car reached speeds comparable to much larger rivals, not because it was brutal, but because it was efficient. Ettore called it le pur sang, the thoroughbred. It was the perfect name. The Type 10 was not a beast. It was a racehorse, balanced, nimble, elegant, and quick. More importantly, it proved that Ettore's ideas worked. With a single prototype, Ettore Bugatti made a bold move, relocating to Molsheim and founding Bugatti with nothing but vision. Early cars were mocked for being small, yet they proved superior, faster, sharper, and more efficient. The Type 13 cemented this philosophy, introducing advanced engineering and achieving success at the French Grand Prix. Then World War I disrupted everything, forcing Bugatti into aircraft production. But after the war, Ettore returned stronger, rebuilding his company and launching what would become Bugatti's first golden era. The Type 13 returned in improved form and soon built a fearsome racing reputation. At the 1921 Brescia Grand Prix, Bugattis finished first, second, third, and fourth. The model earned the nickname Brescia, and with good reason. By the mid-1920s, it had collected hundreds of victories. Bugatti was no longer a promising boutique maker. It was now a name associated with winning. Yet Ettore never stood still. He introduced the Type 18, larger and more powerful, and then the Type 29, whose cigar-shaped aerodynamic body hinted at the future of racing design. But the defining masterpiece of the era arrived in 1924, the legendary Type 35. If one car turned Bugatti into a legend, it was this one. The Type 35 was sleek, low, unmistakably elegant, and devastatingly effective. Its engineering was brilliant. It used a lightweight hollow front axle, an advanced crankshaft design, and an 8-cylinder engine that delivered speed with reliability. It did not merely win races, it dominated them. From 1924 to 1931, the Type 35 won over 1,000 races, including 5 consecutive victories at the Targa Florio in Sicily. At one point, Bugatti was averaging an astonishing 14 wins per week. No race car before or since has built such a staggering record of sustained success. But the Type 35 mattered for more than statistics. It embodied Ettore's core belief that art and engineering were not opposites. Its shape was beautiful because it was functional. Its engineering was elegant because it was refined. It looked fast standing still. That union of form and performance became the Bugatti signature. As Bugatti rose to prominence, a new force emerged within the company. Jean Bugatti, the gifted son of Ettore Bugatti. Jean carried his father's instinct for precision but added a bold modern sense of style. Together, they created some of the most iconic cars of their time, especially the legendary Type 57. Where the Type 35 had conquered racing, the Type 57 defined luxury. Its sweeping curves, dramatic stance, and artistic presence made it unforgettable. Models like the Atlantic and Atalanta became symbols of elegance, blending Jean's creativity with Ettore's discipline. At the same time, Bugatti gained an unexpected icon in Helen Ice, known as the Bugatti Queen. Fearless and charismatic, she shattered records and brought global attention to the brand. In a male-dominated world, she made Bugatti not just fast, but glamorous and culturally magnetic. By the late 1920s, Bugatti stood at its peak. Its racing victories were unmatched, and its cars were desired by elites across Europe. But then everything changed. The Great Depression crushed luxury markets. Sales collapsed, and ambitious projects like the Type 41 Royale became financial burdens. To survive, Ettore pivoted to designing high-speed railcars, keeping the company alive through innovation. Then tragedy struck. In 1939, Jean Bugatti was killed in a crash while testing a car. The loss devastated Ettore. Soon after, World War II engulfed Europe. The factory was seized, operations shattered, and Bugatti's empire collapsed. Ettore briefly regained control in 1947, but died just 10 days later. Without him or Jean, Bugatti faded into silence. Decades later, the name returned. In 1998, Volkswagen Group revived Bugatti, leading to the creation of the revolutionary Bugatti Veyron in 2005, an engineering marvel that redefined speed and luxury. This legacy continued with the Bugatti Chiron, pushing boundaries even further. Today, Bugatti stands between heritage and innovation, proving that its story was never just about cars but about the relentless pursuit of perfection. That is why Bugatti is more than a brand. It is a legacy of perfection pursued without compromise. A name forged in art, tested by tragedy, and reborn through innovation. And for many, that is exactly why Bugatti still feels like the car of the decade and perhaps the dream of every decade. From failure to greatness, subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire you to think bigger.